We're very lucky to be joined once again on the program by Senior Strategic Organizer for Roots Action, India Walton. Welcome back to the Damage Report.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
We're glad to have you here. It's been a bit since we last spoke, and the main topic that we want to talk about is student loan debt, massive crisis that we address a lot on the show, and we have a lot of expectations for what Joe Biden, who promised he would do something about this, might do. So we're gonna dive into that. But I know since we last spoke, obviously, so you had been a candidate who had this surprise victory in the primary for mayor of Buffalo, and then a lot of stuff happened after that. And I just wanted, I know a lot in our audience, very closely followed what was going on with that whole situation. But is there anything you wanted to add about what's happened in the interim?
Well, I mean, the one thing I want everyone to know is I'm okay. I'm doing lots of therapy and yoga, but the city of Buffalo and the establishment here has not heard the last of me and has not heard the last of my supporters. We had a very tragic incident happen on May 14th where there was a racist terrorist attack in the Black community. And this person was able to identify the grocery store where he could find Black people because he was able to Google the zip code. Buffalo is the 6th most segregated city in the nation, and this is by design. These are policy decisions, and the people who are in power right now, the same ones who went out on Jefferson Avenue in Buffalo and decried systemic racism, are the perpetuators of that. And we are watching it continue to be supported in this redistricting process where they are continuing to attempt to dilute the voting power of Black and Latinx people here in the city of Buffalo. And we're not having it. So a part of the work that I am privileged to be able to do is stay on the front lines and stay in the streets and let people know that these things are happening and that they're not right and that we have alternative choices.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I wasn't sure if we would talk about that tragedy. It's been now a good number of weeks, and obviously because this is America, in the time since what happened in Buffalo, we've had a number of different mass shootings, including just in the past couple of days. And there's obviously nothing that can happen that makes that not such an unimaginable tragedy. But one could hope that at the very least, such an obvious, indisputable motivation for it, that we could come out of it with people having learned something, being forced to grapple with some of these ideologies and motivations for this terrible violence. It's been a few weeks now. What do you feel like was learned, if anything, out of this? Like we had the little bill that they passed. What do you think in terms of the reaction to what happened and the opportunity, coming out of it?
I am disappointed but not surprised. In the first interview that I did after the tragedy happened, I said, I want to know what happens when the cameras leave. And what happened is that it's back to business as usual. And I think that from an outsider's perspective, one could assume that our government believes that people don't commit mass murders once they turn 21. Why are we allowing AR-15s to still be purchased in this country, no matter what the age of the person is? It's an assault weapon. It's meant to kill and destroy. There's no reason why people need to own them. And I think that this, draws a direct connection to the frustration that a lot of folks have with the Democrats. Is you are supposed to be the party that wants to keep us safe. You are supposed to be the party of the people. You're supposed to represent workers and diversity, and you have failed to protect our children. You failed to protect women's reproductive rights, and you failed to cancel student debt. So what is the incentive that we have to keep voting blue no matter who, when the conditions in our communities just continue to get worse?
Yeah, and to be told in the wake of all of these tragedies of a variety of different types, that should be the only response.
Vote harder.
Vote harder. If we vote hard enough, then eventually the Democrats could control the White House, the Senate, and the House. And then imagine what would be possible then. Oh wait, they have that right now, and it's seemingly not enough. But look, obviously, as we've alluded to in this conversation, there's a lot of different areas that we can and should critique them on. But one of them, and it fits very well into what we've been talking about, is so far the complete lack of willingness to do anything about student debt, which I know is an issue that you work a lot on, and you had a great write-up that I read on Common Dreams about it. So tell me a little bit about the magnitude of the problem, what you think can and should be done to deal with that problem.
Yeah, there are tens of millions of Americans with student debt that equals more than $1.7 trillion. And just like most things in this country, in this world, the burden disproportionately falls on people of color and specifically women of color. Well, guess what? I'm a Black woman who has student debt. So this is an issue that affects me personally, right? It has prevented me from being able to realize my American dream of being a homeowner, right? And being a person who is a former registered nurse, has had a very stable salary, and giving so much of that into student loan repayment, and even having my debt to income ratio dependent upon a commodity that should be free. We should want an educated citizenry in this country. And just knowing that people who take out student loans tend to be of lower income, and having our opposition tell us that this is going to benefit wealthy doctors and lawyers, I know that for myself to be untrue. It's going to benefit people who probably wouldn't have been able to afford to attend college in the first place if not for student loans.
Yeah, and that's anytime you bring it up, you get the response from people who will either frame it as it only affects people in grad school or lawyers or whatever, or they'll come at it from the other angle of, well, I already paid off mine, then why should money ever go to someone when it wouldn't go to me? And yet we subsidize the oil companies for billions of dollars. We've managed to make it work in that case. And so Joe Biden obviously is a person who is aware of this crisis. He campaigned on doing something about it, perhaps not at the level that you or I would choose, but he said he would do something. They set up this commission to look into it, and they looked into it for what felt like about 75 years. And then they told us months ago, in 2 weeks, we're gonna roll out our plan. And a lot of time has now passed. And what are your expectations for what they're gonna do? They had sort of alluded to they're gonna do the $10,000 at least, but now week after week after week passes. What are your thoughts at this point?
I am putting all of my rose-colored hopes and dreams on full cancellation without means testing for every single person who has federal student loans, and some other form of relief for folks who have private loans. But this is America, and I've been here now for 40 years. So I know that the most likely possibility is that we'll either see broad cancellation of $10,000, which is still gonna have a significant impact. And if we do see a larger amount, it's probably gonna be means tested, and it will likely be for people who make less than $150,000 a year, which will still have a great impact, but not as great as canceling student debt altogether. I mean, when we're thinking about like inflation and gas prices and the housing crisis, right? Like the thing that is going to help those issues that we have is going to be allowing people access to more of their own capital. The less we have to pay back to this predatory education system, the more we have to invest in things that we really need in our everyday lives.
Yeah, and that actually gets into what my next question would be. So like, let's say hypothetically, your dreams were to come true, the dreams of millions and millions of Americans were to come true, and you were to do these cancellations. What do you see as the short and long-term benefits of that? What can we expect to happen if that sort of cancellation were to occur?
I think that we would see an increase in homeownership, especially in communities of color. And I mean, I'm not saying it's a single source solution, right? We have to look at a lot of policies. We have to look at lending policies, redlining, credit worthiness, and those guidelines and things like that. But I think that so many people are strapped under the weight of worrying about student debt. I know people in my generation who have delayed marriage, who've delayed having children because they owe student debt. I think that we'll just see a happier, more balanced society in the short and in the long term. And I think that, canceling debt, student debt is the first step to canceling medical debt, consumer debt, and also just making higher education free for people who live in this country, because we deserve it. Our taxpayer dollars go to fund the war machine and the prison industrial complex, and things that are not making society any better, the least we can do is put the money where it really, really matters. And that is into education, and that is into the pockets of so many Americans who really need that in order to survive.
Yeah. I want to ask you one more question, and it gets into, I think a lot of people, like they can speculate about what effect it would have on people's ability to, spend money, own a home, own a car, start a business, all that, and they see how beneficial that would be. And it's easy to speculate about, even if Biden didn't care about the economic reality, that this would help him politically and help other Democrats at the very least, and yet nothing happens. So it leaves a lot of people just bewildered. So why do you think it is that so much time has gone by and he hasn't yet acted? Why not do in an environment where he apparently can do so little because of Manchin or Sinema or whatever? Why not do this thing? What is taking so long? What do you think about that?
I have heard Biden on several occasions speak on this topic, and I think that he really doesn't believe that we deserve it. I think that he believes that canceling student debt is a young person's issue, and it's not. It's an issue for people who are, in their 20s, 30s, 50s, 60s, 70s. There are people right now whose Social Security is being garnished because they defaulted on student loans, right? So to say that millennials need to suck it up is just misinformation. It could have been done a long time ago. We know that he can, by executive action, forgive student debt, and it's going to cause issues in the midterm elections. And it's also going to cause severe hardship for folks who are staring down having to resume payments come September 1st. Something has to be done.
Yeah. And just think about, like, even if you didn't care about the substance, allowing the repayment to start like on the eve of the election. What a boneheaded, it doesn't really stand out compared to all the other stupid things that Democrats do politically, but what a boneheaded move. And you're totally right that it's not just a young person's issue. Obviously not everyone has student loan debt, but I think it would be difficult to find someone whose sibling, spouse, parent, child, friend isn't struggling massively with this issue. It affects so many people. So, I appreciate you raising this with your op-ed. I appreciate the work that you do, for Roots Action. I wish that you were instead the mayor of Buffalo right now, but I do appreciate what you're doing and joining us on the show, India. As always, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot.